The rain fell hard on Varith Prime. It was the kind of cold rain that got into your bones and stayed there. Commander Marcus Cole pulled his jacket tighter and walked faster through the merchant district. He had not been on this planet in 3 years. He had promised himself he would never come back. But the military had other plans, and soldiers did not get to choose where they went. 3 years ago, Marcus had left this world as a broken man. His wife had told him to leave. Not just leave their home, but leave the planet, leave her life, and never return. Cyrillith, daughter of the great dragon empress, had looked at him with those golden eyes and said words that still burned in his memory. "You are human," she had said. "Your life is short. Your blood is cold. You cannot understand what it means to be Drickery." This marriage was a mistake. Marcus had not argued. What could he say? The Dracari were one of the oldest races in the galaxy. They had built empires when humans were still living in caves on Earth. They breathed fire. They lived for thousands of years. They had wings that could carry them through the clouds. And Marcus was just a human. Just a man with maybe 80 years if he was lucky. Just a soldier from a species that had only been traveling the stars for 50 years. So he had left. He had buried himself in his work. He had taken every dangerous mission the military offered. He had tried to forget her face, her voice, the way she laughed when they were alone together. He had mostly failed. Now he walked through the streets of her home city, keeping his head down, hoping he would not see anyone he knew. The merchant district was busy despite the rain. Aliens of all kinds moved through the streets, buying and selling, talking and arguing. Marcus saw Etherians with their glowing skin, Vorn with their 4 arms, and of course the Dracari with their scales and their wings and their pride. The Dracari always walked like they owned the world, because they usually did. Marcus turned down a side street to avoid a crowd. This was a poorer area, he realized. The buildings were older here. The lights were dimmer. The people moving through the shadows looked hungry and desperate. Even on a rich planet like Varith Prime, there were places where the light did not reach. He almost walked past her. Something made him stop. Maybe it was the color of the scales. Maybe it was some part of his heart that had never stopped looking for her. But he stopped, and he turned, and he looked into the dark corner of an alley where a figure sat hunched against the cold stone wall. The figure was Dracari. He could see that much. But something was wrong. The scales that should have been bright and beautiful were dull and cracked. The wings that should have been proud and strong were folded tight against the body, and even in the dim light Marcus could see they were torn. The creature looked thin, so thin that the bones showed through the skin. Marcus took a step closer. His heart was beating fast now, though he did not understand why. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a credit chip. It was not much, but it was something. He held it out toward the figure. "Here," he said softly. "Take this. Get yourself some food." The figure raised its head slowly. The movement seemed to take great effort. And then Marcus saw the face, and the world stopped. Golden eyes. Dulled now, clouded with pain and hunger, but still golden. A face he had kissed 1,000 times. A face he had loved more than his own life. "Cyrillith," he whispered. She stared at him. For a long moment, there was no recognition in her eyes. She looked at him like he was a stranger, like he was just another person in a universe that had forgotten her. Then something changed. Her eyes went wide. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. "Marcus?" Her voice was like dry leaves scraping on stone. "Marcus, is that—" No, this cannot be real. You cannot be here." He dropped to his knees in front of her. Up close, she looked even worse. Her scales were not just dull. Some of them had fallen out entirely, leaving raw patches of skin. Her claws were cracked and broken. And her eyes, those beautiful golden eyes, held a kind of emptiness that made Marcus want to scream. "What happened to you?" he asked. "Cyrillith, what happened?" She laughed. It was a terrible sound, nothing like the warm laughter he remembered. "What happened?" "Everything happened. The war happened. The Empress happened. The severing happened." She shook her head slowly. "You should not be here, Marcus. You should not see me like this. Go away. Please, just go away. I'm not going anywhere. I told you to leave once before. You listened then. That was different." "How? How is it different?" Her voice cracked, and he saw tears forming in her eyes. Drakery rarely cried. "I sent you away. I told you that you were beneath me. I told you that our marriage was a mistake. I broke your heart because my mother commanded it, and I was too much of a coward to say no. Why would you help me now? Why would you even look at me?" Marcus did not have an answer. At least, not one that made sense. By all logic, he should walk away. She had hurt him more than anyone had ever hurt him before. She had made him feel small and worthless and wrong. She had taken his love and thrown it back in his face. But looking at her now, broken and starving and alone, he felt nothing but pain for her. His own pain seemed small compared to whatever had happened to bring her to this place. "Can you stand?" he asked. "What? Can you stand up? Can you walk? Why do you want to know?" "Because I'm taking you somewhere safe. Somewhere warm. Somewhere with food and medicine and a bed." He held out his hand to her. "I'm taking you to my ship." She stared at his hand like it was something alien and strange. "You cannot do this," she whispered. "I do not deserve this." "Maybe not," Marcus said. "But I'm doing it anyway. That's what humans do. We help people, even when they don't deserve it. Even when they've hurt us. Even when it makes no sense." He kept his hand extended, steady and patient. "Please, Cyrillith, let me help you." For a long moment, she did not move. The rain continued to fall around them, cold and uncaring. Then, slowly, with a hand that shook like a leaf in the wind, she reached out and took his hand on, and Marcus Cole carried his dragon ex-wife out of the darkness. The Terran Refugee Coalition was located on a small moon called New Haven. It was not a beautiful place. The buildings were simple metal structures, built quickly and without any thought for style. The sky was gray more often than not, and the wind never seemed to stop blowing. But to the thousands of refugees who lived there, it was the most beautiful place in the galaxy. Marcus brought Cyrillith to New Haven on a cold morning. She could barely walk, so he carried her again, her thin body wrapped in blankets to keep out the wind. The staff at the entrance took one look at her and called for a medical team. Within minutes, she was on a stretcher being rushed to the main hospital building. Marcus tried to follow, but a nurse stopped him at the door. "Family only beyond this point," the nurse said. She was a small woman with kind eyes and gray hair. "She is my family," Marcus said. "She's my wife, ex-wife. It's complicated." The nurse looked at him for a long moment. Then she nodded and stepped aside. "Room 7. Try to stay out of the doctor's way." The next 18 hours were the longest of Marcus's life. He sat in the corner of room 7 and watched as human doctors worked to save Cyrillith's life. They moved with speed and skill, calling out numbers and medical terms that Marcus did not understand. They connected her to machines and pumped fluids into her body. They operated on her twice to fix damage to her internal organs, and through all of it, Marcus watched and prayed to whatever gods might be listening. The doctors were all human. That struck him as strange at first. On most worlds, you would see medical teams made up of many different species. But here on New Haven, the doctors and nurses and technicians were all human. Short-lived, supposedly inferior humans, working through the night to save the life of a dragon who had once looked down on their entire species. When the surgery was over and Cyrillith was stable, the lead doctor came to talk to Marcus. She was a tall woman with dark skin and tired eyes. "She's going to live," the doctor said. "It was close, but she's going to make it." Marcus let out a breath he did not know he was holding. "Thank you. Thank you so much." "Don't thank me yet. Her body will heal, but there are other problems. The severing did something to her that we don't fully understand. Her body can't generate heat anymore. She needs a thermal regulation suit to keep her temperature stable. And the psychological damage." The doctor shook her head. "That's going to take a lot longer to heal. Maybe years. Maybe never. What can I do? Be there for her. That's all any of us can do." Over the next few weeks, Marcus watched Cyrillith slowly come back to life. The color returned to her scales, though they never regained their original golden shine. Her wings healed, though the doctor said she would probably never fly again. And her body grew stronger, though she would always be thin compared to a healthy Drakery. But it was the small things that surprised him most. He watched as human engineers built her a thermal regulation suit. It was a simple thing, a network of thin wires that wrapped around her body and kept her warm. The engineers worked on it for 3 days, making adjustments and improvements until it fit perfectly. When Cyrillith asked them why they were working so hard on something for a stranger, they just shrugged and said it was their job. He watched as human psychologists sat with her night after night. The severing had left scars that went deeper than flesh. Sometimes Cyrillith would wake up screaming, the emptiness inside her too much to bear. And every time, there would be a human there to hold her hand and talk her through the darkness. They asked for nothing in return. They just helped. He watched as human volunteers brought her food, helped her walk, taught her how to use the thermal suit. They were ordinary people, not soldiers or doctors or heroes. They were farmers and teachers and shopkeepers who had given up their comfortable lives to help strangers from across the galaxy. One day, a young nurse named Elena sat with Cyrillith for 6 hours straight. She hand-fed her nutrient broth because Cyrillith's hands were shaking too badly to hold a spoon. She told her stories about Earth, about oceans and mountains and cities full of people. She laughed at Cyrillith's questions about human customs and answered them with patience and warmth. When Elena finally had to leave for her next shift, Cyrillith grabbed her hand. "Why?" Cyrillith asked. "Why are you doing this? You gain nothing from helping me. Your species gains nothing. The Drakery have treated humans like lesser beings for 50 years. We have called you short-lived and primitive and unworthy of respect. Why would you help one of us?" Elena looked at her with genuine confusion. "You needed help," she said. "That's all. You were suffering, and I could do something about it. So I did. That is not an answer. It's the only answer we have." Elena squeezed her hand gently. "Get some rest. I'll come check on you after my shift." She left, and Cyrillith lay in her bed, staring at the ceiling and trying to understand Dot in her 300 years of life. She had never seen anything like this. The Drakery helped each other, yes, but always with expectations. Always with the understanding that the favor would be repaid. The other elder races were the same. Every gift came with strings attached. Every kindness was a transaction. But humans were different. They helped because helping was the right thing to do. They gave without expecting anything in return. They worked themselves to exhaustion caring for strangers who had never shown them anything but contempt. Dot, it made no sense to her. But slowly, over the weeks that followed, she began to understand. Humans did not live for thousands of years like the Drakery. They did not have centuries to build power and collect favors and play political games. Their lives were short, so terribly short, that they could not afford to wait for the right moment to do good. They did good now, today, this moment. Because tomorrow might never come. It was not weakness, Cyrillith realized. It was strength, a different kind of strength than she had ever known. The strength to give without expecting anything back. The strength to love without conditions. The strength to help a broken dragon who had done nothing to deserve it. For the first time in months, Cyrillith felt something warm inside her chest. It was not fire. That was gone forever, but it was something. And maybe, she thought, maybe that was enough. The ship was small but warm. Marcus had served on it for 2 years now, and it felt more like home than any place on Earth ever had. He carried Cyrillith through the cargo bay and into the med bay, where he set her down on the medical bed as gently as he could. She weighed almost nothing. That scared him more than anything else. Drakkari were supposed to be heavy, their bones dense and their muscles strong. But she felt like a bundle of sticks wrapped in dry paper. Like something that might break if he held it too tightly. "Computer," he said. "Full medical scan. Priority 1. The machine hummed to life. Blue lights passed over Cyrillith's body, reading her vital signs, checking her organs, measuring things that Marcus did not understand. She lay still through all of it, her eyes staring at the ceiling, her expression empty. When the scan was done, Marcus read the results. His hands began to shake. Severe malnutrition. Multiple infections. Internal damage to organs he could not pronounce. And something else, something the computer flagged in red letters. Complete absence of thermal generation. Core temperature dangerously low. Marcus knew what that meant. Every human who spent time around the Drakkari knew about their fire. It was not just something they could breathe. It was something that lived inside them. A flame that burned in their chest from birth until death. It kept them warm. It gave them strength. It connected them to each other in ways that outsiders could not understand. Cyrillith's flame was gone. "How?" he asked quietly. "How is your fire gone?" She closed her eyes. For a long time she did not speak. Marcus waited. He had learned patience during their marriage. Drakkari did not like to be rushed. Finally, she opened her eyes and looked at him. "Do you remember when I sent you away? I told you that my mother disapproved of our marriage. That was true, but it was not the whole truth. My mother was planning something. A war. A civil war that would change everything." Marcus nodded slowly. He had heard rumors over the past 3 years. Stories of fighting among the Drakkari. But the details had been unclear, and humans were rarely told what was really happening among the elder races. "My family, House Caranthus, chose to support the old ways," Cyrillith continued. "We believed that the Empress had become too powerful, too controlling. We thought we could change things. We thought we could win." She laughed bitterly. "We were wrong. The Empress won the war? The Empress crushed us. Completely and utterly. Every house that stood against her was destroyed. Some were killed outright. Others were given a fate worse than death." She looked down at her hands, at her cracked and broken claws. "My family was given the severing." Marcus had never heard of the severing before. But the way she said the word made his blood run cold. "What is the severing?" he asked. "It is the worst punishment a Drakkari can receive. Worse than death. Worse than torture. The Empress has priests who can reach inside you and cut you off from the flame. Not just your own fire, but the connection to all Drakkari. The warmth that binds our people together across all the worlds." Tears ran down her face, leaving wet tracks on her dulled scales. "When they severed me, it felt like dying. Like having my soul ripped out through my chest. I screamed for 3 days. And when I stopped screaming, I was this. Empty. Cold. Alone in a way that no words can describe." Marcus felt sick. He had seen terrible things during his military career. He had watched friends die. He had killed enemies who were trying to kill him. But this was something different. This was cruelty on a level he could barely understand. "Your mother?" he asked. "Your sisters?" "My mother chose death rather than face the severing." "My sisters." Cyrilith's voice broke. "I do not know. Scattered across the galaxy, I suppose. Those who survived. I have not been able to find them. I do not even know if I want to. What would I say? What comfort could I offer when I am as broken as they are?" Marcus reached out and took her hand. Her scales were cold, so cold that it almost hurt to touch them. He held her hand anyway. "Why didn't you contact me?" he asked. "When all this was happening, why didn't you ask for help?" She pulled her hand away. "Contact you? After what I said to you? After the way I treated you?" She shook her head violently. "I told you that you were beneath me. I told you that our marriage was a mistake. I told you that you could never understand what it meant to be drudgery." She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "I said those things because my mother told me to. Because I was afraid of what would happen if I defied her. And now look at me. Look at what my obedience earned me. You were trying to protect your family. I was a coward. I chose my mother's approval over your love, and I lost everything anyway. I lost my fire, my home, my family. I lost myself." She finally looked at him, and the pain in her eyes was almost more than he could bear. "I would have died in that alley before I came crawling to you for help. I have some pride left, even now, and yet here you are. You did not give me a choice." A ghost of a smile crossed her face. "You never did. You humans are impossible. Anyone else would have walked past me in that alley. Anyone else would have seen a broken drudgery and felt satisfied that one of the proud dragon people had finally fallen. But you stopped. You knelt in the mud and offered me your hand. Why? I have done nothing but hurt you. I deserve nothing from you." Marcus thought about the question. It was a good question. He had asked himself the same thing as he carried her through the rain. Why was he doing this? What did he owe her? The answer, when it came, was simple. "Because leaving you there would have made me less than human," he said. "Because helping people who are suffering is what we do. It's who we are. And because—" he paused, struggling to find the right words. "Because I still love you. I never stopped. I tried to, God knows I tried, but I never could." She stared at him. More tears fell from her golden eyes. "You should not love me," she whispered. "I'm not worthy of it." "Maybe not," Marcus agreed. "But love doesn't work that way. It doesn't ask if people are worthy. It just is." He stood up and walked to the navigation console. "I'm setting a course for human space. There are doctors there who might be able to help you. And there's a refugee center that takes in people from the war. They won't ask questions. They won't judge you. They'll just help. Why would humans help a drudgery?" Marcus looked at her over his shoulder and smiled sadly. "Because that's what humans do," he said. "We help everyone. Even people who think they're better than us. Even people who have hurt us. Even when it makes no sense at all." He turned back to the console and began entering the coordinates. Behind him, Cyrilith lay on the medical bed and cried quietly. She cried for everything she had lost. And somewhere deep inside, in a place that had been frozen solid for 3 years, she began to feel something that might have been hope. Months passed on New Haven. The gray sky and the cold wind became familiar to Cyrilith. She learned to walk without help, then to run, then to move through the refugee center with something like grace. Her body healed. Her scales grew back, though they remained a dull bronze instead of bright gold. Her wings grew strong again, though the doctors were right. She would never fly again, but it was her mind that changed the most. Every day, she saw things that amazed her. Small things. Simple things. Things that the Drakari would have considered beneath their notice. She saw a human woman give her last piece of bread to a Vorn child who was crying from hunger. The woman went hungry that night. She smiled about it. She saw human veterans, soldiers who had lost arms and legs and eyes in wars they barely survived, spending their days helping newcomers to the refugee center. They carried boxes and built beds and told jokes to frighten children. When Cyrillith asked them why they worked so hard when they had already given so much, they just shrugged and said they wanted to feel useful. She saw human children playing with Drakari orphans. The Drakari children had lost their parents in the Civil War. Their scales were dull, and their eyes were haunted, and they flinched whenever an adult raised a voice. But the human children did not care. They taught them games and shared their toys and treated them like friends. Within weeks, the Drakari children were laughing again. She saw all of this, and she did not understand it, and she loved it, and she watched Marcus. He visited whenever he could. His military duties took him away for weeks at a time, but he always came back. He never pushed her to talk about the past. He never reminded her of the terrible things she had said to him. He just sat with her and talked about small things. His missions, the planets he had seen, the strange foods he had eaten, the friends he had made. He treated her like an equal, not like a fallen princess, not like a broken refugee, not like an ex-wife who had shattered his heart, just like a person, just like Cyrillith. One night, they sat together on a hill overlooking the refugee center. The sky was clear for once, and stars covered the darkness like scattered diamonds. Cyrillith's thermal suit hummed quietly, keeping her warm against the cold. "I have been thinking," Cyrillith said. "That sounds dangerous." She laughed. It was still strange to her, laughing. For months after the severing, she had not thought she would ever laugh again. "I have been thinking about what you said on your ship. When you found me in the alley, I said a lot of things on my ship. You said you still love me." She looked at him. "Even after everything I did. Even after the way I treated you. Did you mean it?" Marcus was quiet for a long time. The wind blew across the hill, carrying the sounds of the refugee center below. Children laughing. Adults talking. The clatter of plates in the dining hall. "Yes," he finally said. "I meant it. Why?" "I do not understand. I told you that you were beneath me. I told you that our marriage was a mistake. I threw your love back in your face because my mother told me to, and I was too weak to say no. Why would you still love someone who treated you that way?" Marcus turned to look at her. His eyes were soft in the starlight. "Because I knew it wasn't really you," he said. "When you said those things, I could see it in your eyes. You were scared. You were doing what you thought you had to do to protect your family. It hurt like hell, but I knew it wasn't the real you." He paused. "And because love doesn't just go away. I tried to make it go away. I threw myself into my work. I took every dangerous mission I could find. I told myself that you were right, that I was just a human, that I had no business loving a dragon. But none of it worked. The love just stayed." Cyrillith felt tears forming in her eyes. "You are a fool," she whispered. "Probably. Humans are so strange. You forgive too easily. You love too deeply. You help people who do not deserve it." She shook her head. "For 300 years, I was taught that Drakari were the greatest race in the galaxy. The strongest, the wisest, the most worthy of respect. And now I sit here on a cold moon surrounded by humans, and I realize that everything I believed was wrong." "We're not perfect," Marcus said. "Humans have done terrible things. We've had wars and genocides and cruelty just like everyone else. We're not better than the Drakari. We're just different. Yes, different." Cyrillith moved closer to him, close enough that she could feel the warmth of his body. You burn differently than we do. We Drakari have fire in our blood. We are born with flames inside us, and we think that makes us strong. But you humans—" She paused, searching for the right words. "You are born cold. You have no fire inside you. And yet you burn brighter than any dragon I have ever met." "I don't know about that." "I do." She reached out and took his hand. His skin was warm against her cold scales. "I have seen your fire, Marcus Cole. It is not in your blood. It is in your choices. Every day, you choose to be kind. Every day, you choose to help. Every day, you choose to love even when love brings you pain. That is a fire that can never be extinguished. That is a fire that the severing could never touch." Marcus squeezed her hand. "Cyrillith, I was wrong about everything," she said. "I was wrong about you. I was wrong about humans. I was wrong about what it means to be strong." She turned to face him fully, her golden eyes meeting his brown ones. "I never stopped loving you either. I tried to kill that love when I sent you away. I tried to bury it beneath duty and fear and pride. But it never died. It stayed, just like yours did." "What are you saying?" "I am saying that I was a fool. A proud, arrogant, cowardly fool. I threw away the best thing that ever happened to me because I was afraid of my mother. And now my mother is dead, and my fire is gone, and I have nothing left except the memory of the man I should have fought for." She bowed her head. "I am not asking you to take me back. I know I do not deserve that. But I wanted you to know. I wanted you to understand." For a long moment, there was silence. The wind blew. The stars shone. The sounds of the refugee center drifted up from below Dot. Then Marcus reached out and lifted her chin gently. He looked into her eyes and smiled. "You still don't understand humans, do you?" he said. "We don't give people what they deserve. We give them what they need." He leaned forward and kissed her forehead softly. "I'm not going anywhere, Cyrillith. I never was. I was just waiting for you to be ready." Cyrillith closed her eyes and let the tears fall. For the first time since the severing, she did not feel empty, she felt warm. They came 6 months later. Cyrillith was helping in the refugee center kitchen when she heard the first explosion. The building shook. Alarms screamed. Children began to cry. And through the window, she saw 3 shapes descending from the sky on wings of fire and fury. Dr. Akari, elite warriors. She recognized their armor, black and gold with the seal of the Empress burned into the chest plates. They were the Empress's personal assassins, sent to finish what the severing had started. She had known they would come eventually. A disgraced dragon living among humans was an insult that the Empress could not allow to stand. But she had hoped for more time. She had hoped that maybe, somehow, she had been forgotten. She had been wrong. The assassins landed in the center courtyard. Their fire breath melted the metal walkways around them. Their golden eyes swept across the terrified refugees, searching for their target. When the lead assassin saw Cyrillith standing in the kitchen doorway, he smiled. "There you are, little traitor," he called out. "The Empress sends her regards." Cyrillith stepped forward. Her heart was pounding, but her voice was steady. "Leave these people alone. They have nothing to do with this. Your quarrel is with me. Our quarrel is with anyone who shelters you." The assassin spread his wings wide. Smoke curled from his nostrils. "The humans here will burn as a lesson to all who would protect the enemies of the Empress." "No." The voice came from behind Cyrillith. She turned and saw Marcus walking toward the courtyard. He was not wearing armor. He was not carrying a weapon. He was just a man, a human, facing 3 dragons who could kill him with a single breath. "Marcus, no," Cyrillith said. "Go back. Get the civilians out of here. They're not going anywhere." Marcus walked past her and stopped 10 feet from the lead assassin. Around the courtyard, other humans were appearing. Security officers with their small weapons. Workers with tools in their hands. Parents pushing their children behind them. They were forming a wall, a human wall, between the assassins and the refugees. The lead assassin laughed. "What is this? A defense? You think a handful of short-lived humans can stop 3 dragons?" "No," Marcus said. "I think 1 human can delay you long enough for the fleet to arrive." The assassin's smile faded slightly. "What fleet?" "The Terran Confederacy 3rd Fleet. They've been running training exercises in this sector for the past week. Purely by coincidence, of course." Marcus's voice was calm, almost casual. "I put in a call about 20 minutes ago when our sensors detected your ship entering the system. They should be here in about 15 minutes. 15 minutes is a long time. You will all be dead in 5. Maybe. But then you'll have to explain to your Empress why 3 of her elite warriors started a war with the Terran Confederacy over 1 refugee." Marcus took a step forward. "Is she worth it? Is 1 broken Phyllis Dracari worth a war with a species that has 3,000 warships?" The assassin's eyes narrowed. "You are bluffing, am I?" Marcus gestured at the humans around the courtyard. "Look at us. We're not running. We're not hiding. We're standing here, between you and the people we protect, and we're not moving. Do you really think we would do that if we didn't have something to back it up? You would die for her? For a dragon who abandoned you?" "I would die for anyone standing behind me," Marcus said. "That's what humans do. We protect the weak. We shelter the lost. We fight for people who can't fight for themselves. It doesn't matter if they're human, or Dracari, or Vorn, or Etherean. If they need us, we're there." The lead assassin looked at Marcus for a long moment. Then he looked at the humans surrounding the courtyard. They were not soldiers. They were not warriors. They were cooks and doctors and engineers and teachers. They had children hiding behind them and fear in their eyes. But they were not moving. Not one of them was moving. "You are all fools," the assassin said. "Brave fools, perhaps, but fools nonetheless." "Maybe," Marcus agreed. "But we're fools together. And there's a lot of us." The standoff lasted 11 minutes. 11 minutes of silence and tension and the distant sound of crying children. The assassins stood with their fire ready. The humans stood with their nothing but their bodies and their courage. And Marcus Cole stood at the front, unarmed and unafraid, staring down 3 dragons who could kill him with a thought. Then the sky lit up. Ships burst out of hyperspace. Dozens of them, each one bearing the flag of the Terran Confederacy. Within seconds, the small moon was surrounded by enough firepower to level a continent. The lead assassin looked up at the sky. His wings folded slowly against his back. "This is not over," he said quietly. "It never is," Marcus replied. "But today, it is. Today, you leave. Today, these people live. That's enough for me." The assassin stared at him with something that might have been respect. Then he turned and spread his wings. The other 2 assassins followed. They rose into the sky without another word, heading back toward their ship. When they were gone, the humans finally let out their breath. Some of them collapsed. Some of them cried. Some of them hugged each other and laughed with the relief of still being alive. SY, our ally, to walk through the crowd until she reached Marcus. He was shaking now, the fear he had been hiding finally coming to the surface. She took his hand and held it tight. "You are insane," she said. "You could have died." "Probably," he admitted. "But I wasn't going to let them take you. Not again. Not ever again." That night, after the fleet had secured the moon and the refugees had been calmed and the damage had been repaired, Cyrillith made a decision. She found the administrator of the refugee center and knelt before him, a formal gesture of request in Dracari tradition. I wish to request asylum, she said. Full asylum. Not as a refugee. Not as a temporary guest. I wish to become a citizen of the Terran Confederacy. I wish to make my home among humans. The administrator was surprised. Are you sure? The Dracari Empress will see this as a betrayal. Let her. Cyrillith rose to her feet. I have learned something these past months. I have learned that strength is not about fire or centuries of life or ancient bloodlines. Strength is about choices. It is about standing up for others, even when you are afraid. It is about giving without expecting anything in return. She looked at Marcus, who was standing in the doorway, watching her. Humans taught me that. This human most of all. I want to spend the rest of my life among people who understand what true strength really is. The administrator smiled. We would be honored to have you. Later that night, Cyrillith and Marcus stood together on the same hill where they had shared their hearts months ago. The stars were out again, bright and beautiful against the dark sky. So, Marcus said, what happens now? Cyrillith thought about the question. A year ago, she had been a princess. She had been rich and powerful and proud. She had fire in her blood and 1,000 years of life ahead of her dot. Now she had nothing. No fire, no title, no family, no home. Except that was not quite true. She had a thermal suit that kept her warm. She had a refugee center that had welcomed her. She had humans who had saved her life and asked for nothing in return. And she had Marcus. She had always had Marcus. She had just been too blind and too proud to see it. Now, she said, I would like to start over. If you are willing. Marcus took her hand. His skin was warm against her cold scales. His eyes were soft in the starlight. His smile was the most beautiful thing she had ever seen. I thought you would never ask, he said. And there, on a cold moon at the edge of human space, a dragon and a human began again, not because they deserved it, but because that was what humans did. They believed in second chances, and sometimes that was enough.